Welcome to our latest video series, The Road to Exchange. I'm Kirsten Chang, Senior Industry Analyst at VettaFi, and I'm joined today by Jeff Concepcion. He's founder and CEO of Stratos Wealth Partners.
Thank you for having me. Great to be with you.
Great to have you. How's the weather treating you over there in Ohio?
It's all relative. It was 5 degrees when I left town a week ago, and it's in the 30s now. So I think we're heading in the right direction.
So Jeff, the biggest complaint we get from advisors today is they simply don't have the time or the bandwidth to do everything they need to do to run their businesses efficiently. And one of the toughest decisions an advisor can make is stepping back or figuring out where to cut corners, so to speak. I know you've been on your own journey of self-discovery and growth. So tell us about a moment or two where you realized the burden was just simply too much to bear all on your own. How did you first reach that epiphany?
Yeah, so it's interesting, and I think you teed that up really well. Mark Tabergen, who's really one of the great thinkers in the industry, he was a former president of Pershing Advisor Solutions, said that advisors have not experienced the fee compression that many other industries of the wealth management business have, but what they're experiencing is time compression. So clients aren't saying we're going to pay you less than your 1%, but they're expecting the advisors to do more and more for them. And consequently, the advisors just end up being overwhelmed with a myriad of tasks and services and advice that clients are looking for them to give. And I think it just becomes really important and also very difficult for the solo practitioner to wear all these hats and to wear them effectively. And to your point, I think people hit ceilings. So whether it's at a certain revenue level or a certain household level, advisors become either ineffective or start to dilute the value that they can provide at those ceilings until they change something. And changing something is either bringing on additional talent, bringing on resources, bringing on technologies, something that gives them expanded capacity. So I think that's kind of the challenge that advisors run into.
So in your mind, what's the number one mistake advisors make today?
I think one of the biggest challenges is that advisors tend to wear too many hats. If you think about the early career of an advisor where they're wearing every hat, they're responsible for marketing, for business development, for opening up accounts, for being the financial planner, for being the investment advisor, paperwork. They don't shed those hats quickly enough. And at the end of the day, you can really only wear one or two hats well. So getting away from the lifestyle practice mentality, investing in their business and hiring talent. And when they hire great talent, they have to make sure that they retain those people. They have to make sure that while people might leave a firm that they work for, they won't leave a firm that they own. I think a lot of times advisors are challenged. Sometimes they want to hire and they don't know how. They don't know exactly what they need. But thinking about it as a business and migrating their mindset to one of wanting to invest versus harvest, be that talent or technology or otherwise, and then again, shedding hats and realizing what their best capabilities are and where others might serve the business and serve their clients better is probably a key area of focus.
Yeah, it's a great point. Acknowledging you need help is often the first step to healing, right? So once you were able to accept that, what was the first big role you outsourced or handed off to an expert, you brought on to handle in your stead?
Yeah, it's a great point. I was speaking with an advisor yesterday. I was in Virginia, I guess, and this is someone who's got a really successful practice. And he said, I'm a control freak. I feel like I'm going to do it better. And I said, part of it's acknowledging that there are certain things that you'll do better and other things that you won't. Certain people are wired in such a way that they'll do things better. So I think the first place people usually start to hand off, the first natural place is having a great operations person. You can use that kind of old school vernacular of an assistant, right? But it's really more of an operations person, someone who might be assisting with scheduling, someone who might be assisting with paperwork prep, someone who might be assisting with a review, prepping a client for a review. That's kind of the first step. Over time, someone might bring on someone who's able to take on planning responsibilities or portfolio management responsibilities. So it's just kind of figuring out what do you do. And in many cases, they find someone who's going to do relationship management, right? Because it's a more common skill set to be a great caretaker than it is to be a great rainmaker, being out in the community and bringing in meaningful new clients. And it's just really finding that hat that you wear best and recognizing stuff that other people could do as well or better. And you don't have to outsource or insource, because you could do either. You don't have to outsource or insource, but if you don't, you're going to hit that ceiling of complexity. And at some point you'll sort of either stop growing or you'll start to dilute the quality or value of service that you provide.
Now, you yourself are more focused on M&A and expansion these days and less involved with client services, right? So how tough was it to step back from the client-facing aspect, that you mentioned of the business? I imagine when you feel that sense of ownership and you cultivate those relationships, it can be a real challenge to hand that off to others.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. Because what we do is really intimate. I mean, it's not like you're making widgets, right? People are pouring out their hearts and souls, or talking about their goals. They talk about family challenges, marital challenges, challenges with their children, challenges with their business. So it's a very intimate nature. And I think there's also, I know I found myself, I think most advisors would, there's a great deal of gratitude to clients who choose you, right? Because they're choosing you and you're choosing them. So that handoff can be difficult. But I think I realized that as I was sort of had a hand in running a private practice, which I did for many, many years, and a hand in trying to grow the enterprise, you won't serve two masters well. You really have to choose. And you see a lot of advisors who want to grow an enterprise. I see this literally every week. I walk into someone's office and there's an advisor who runs a very, very successful business. They've got an assistant and they've got 3 empty offices. And I ask them what's going on. They say, well, they assume that other advisors show up with their luggage and they want to be a part of their firm and they're just going to move in. But that business development role, like with client acquisition, is equally challenging with advisor acquisition or onboarding. So you just, at some point I knew that I was going to not be able to do both things well. And I was really focused on affecting other advisors and their success. So I started to step away from that role. And then even in sort of running the enterprise that we run today, a control freak probably to a degree as well, right? You just want things to go well, but you have to really surround yourself with people who are going to lift up the experience and the service and the organization, empower them, get out of their way. And then when you find the really, really good ones, you have to retain them. I always feel like people would be open to a better opportunity or leaving a firm that they work for, but they never leave a firm where they're a principal or an owner. So when you find those folks that you just can't live without, you've got to wrap your arms around them and really make it a permanent home, which oftentimes would incorporate some form of ownership or equity.
Right. Now, many advisors we speak with, they grapple with the concept of value proposition. If they're not adding value as an investment strategist or CIO, how else can they hope to prove their worth to clients in the marketplace? What would you tell them?
Yeah, it's a great question. I can tell you where I hung my hat in the early days was technical competency. I understood tax and planning, estate planning, business continuity planning. And I always said that products can be commoditized, but advice can't. And that's not even true today. When you look at AI and how readily accessible all these creative tax planning and solutions are and everything else, almost everything can be relegated away or commoditized with the exception of one thing. And it's probably the reason that Robo kind of only got a certain amount of traction. It goes back to a word I used a little while ago, intimacy. It's that human interaction where you sit across from someone and where they're going to make a difficult decision. That's not going to be machine driven, right? This isn't about probabilities. It's about feelings and outcomes and hopes and aspirations. So I think most advisors who grow successful businesses, probably 2 things. It's positioning themselves in the community to bring on more high value clients would be one. And then being the person sitting in the room across from the business owner, from the client, from the family, from a widow, and kind of holding their hand and guiding. That's something that I don't ever envision being outsourced. And I think that should be the crux of any value prop, is that personal connection and the advice and the guidance. I think that's really where we've got to hang our hats if we want to differentiate and have healthy growing businesses.
Well, clearly the journey has been a fruitful one. You now manage a rapidly growing business, successfully growing a multi-billion-dollar book over the years. You've been on the Barron's list of top 10 RIAs now for 7 years in a row. So what sets Stratos apart from other RIAs, and what do you all do best?
I think it teeters around some of the conversations we've had, but what's differentiating in our conversations is we try to take the advisor whose propensity is to focus on revenue and compensation and make them think like a business owner. We want to talk to them about investing. We want to talk to them about talent, about retention, and we want to talk to them less about cash flow and more about an asset. How are they running this business such that they could have a monetization event down the road of a highly valuable firm? So it's really all the coaching and the mindset and the implementation that takes someone from an advisor to a CEO with a real orientation around running a firm and not a practice. I think that's significant. I think the second thing that's propelled us is the deep relationships. When you sit down at the table with an advisor, very much the way they sit down with a client, and you're there just to kind of be a sounding board and help them make really key critical decisions about their future. That creates an alignment, it creates a trust, and it creates a loyalty. And I think that served us well from where we launched the business in 2009 in one location. I think it's north of 140 cities now. So I think that collaboration mindset and that CEO mindset have really helped us to build a successful firm.
And before we let you go here, any other key takeaways for our fellow advisors?
Nothing specific. I think really just the concept of investing in the business, being very contrarian to the tendency to run a lifestyle practice and just extract revenue. Every time that we've reinvested in a meaningful way, I've been frustrated. And the reason is there's a lag between making material investment and actually yielding the growth that you hope for. So you make that investment, you might see your earnings set back, or you bring on a ton of assets and you really don't see an impact on the bottom line. And the key is you really have to digest the investment in technology and people. And there's usually a 12 or 18 month lag. So don't get frustrated, make the investment, build the firm of your dreams. It'll be the firm of your clients' dreams as well. And maybe the firm that's a dream of future investors as well. If you just think about the end game, that's the goal.
Great advice. Yeah, I think you guys you said it right there. Clients' dreams, you're in the future. You're in the business of dreams, right? You're in the business of building your clients' dreams. So you can't commoditize that intimacy that you talked about. Well, there you have it. No shortage of wisdom from the man himself, Jeff Concepcion. Jeff, thanks so much for joining me on the road to exchange. Look forward to seeing you in sunny Las Vegas.